In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut and sew this smoky gathered dress. This dress is from Lola's Closet on Instagram. So to make this dress, I got 6 yards of fabric, but I ended up using only 3 yards. Now, I'm going to go ahead to cut my pattern or cut my dress directly on this fabric. So first, I'm going to open up my fabric. Now, the measurement you need is you need to get the actual length of your dress. For this dress, I'm using 35 inches for the length of my dress. And first, you're going to start cutting from the upper part. Now, what you need to get is your shoulder to waistline, and this dress is a low waist gathered dress, which I'll be adding extra 2 to 3 inches to the waistline. So I have a shorter body and I will just add 2 inches to my actual waistline. My shoulder to waist is 17. Adding 2 inches, I will have 19 inches. Now, to place your tape, you're not going to place your measurement starting from your shoulder to bust. You're going to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. You're going to cut it just like you want to cut your off-shoulder dress. But in this case, what you're going to do is to go ahead to find your chest line, right? Now, to find my chest line is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So that means my chest line is 7 inches. So having gotten that measurement, the next we need is our width to fold your dress, like when you're cutting your normal dress. So when you're making a smoky dress, you notice this dress got up to the hip, the smoky part. So you're going to use your widest measurement, which is your hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll add extra 5 inches to it. Now, my hip is 40 divided by 4, I have 10, plus extra 5 inches will give me 15 inches. That means I'm just folding my fabric by 15. I'm not taking any other measurement. I'm not inserting my bust measurement, my under bust or waist measurement. What I'll do is just to fold my fabric by 15. Now, I'll be using this also to cut for both the front and the back. So now, after this, I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll mark 1 inch here. Now, this is a smoky dress. It's either you fold the edge or you weave it out before you start sewing. Now, after doing this, we are now going to place the length of our dress, which we got earlier. Remember, for this dress, I said you're going to be placing it like an off-shoulder dress. Now, you're going to find your chest line, just like we did earlier, which I got 7 inches. From that 1 inch you marked, you're going to place your tape starting from your chest line, which is 7 inches. Then I'll now mark my waist circumference plus that extra 2 inches we are adding to the waistline. Now, if you're adding extra 3 inches to your waistline, go ahead to add that. So let me summarize this again. To cut out your pattern, you're going to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Now, after finding that, mark 1 inch above your chest line, and from that point, that 1 inch, you place your chest line and then place a straight measurement. Get your shoulder to waistline starting from that chest line, mark your waistline, then add additional 2 to 3 inches. So after this, you go ahead to cut out your pattern. Now, you're going to use the same measurement you used for the front pattern to also cut out the back pattern of this dress. So if you notice, you're not using any much measurement to cut this. It's just one specific measurement, which is to fold your dress. You need your hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra 5 inches. Now, for the length of your dress, place your tape at your chest line and mark your waist plus extra 2 to 3 inches and cut this out. Now I'll go ahead to fold the upper part of my dress. I'll fold it with my machine so that I can start the stitching. So you have to weave or fold out that part of your dress before you start sewing. Now the next step we are going to take is to go ahead to cut out the lining. So you're going to place those layers of flay or pleating of Ankara fabric on the lining. Now for the lining, you need about 60 inches for the width. 60 inches should be okay, that is 30 inches on fold. Or you can go ahead to cut this out on flay, or if you feel this 60 inches is too wide, you can use like 50 to cut it out. For the height, you have to determine this. So to do that, I'll mark ½ inch first, which will serve as a joining allowance. So remember, my shoulder to waist is 17 plus extra 2 inches. I will start my measurement from 19 inches, which is extra 2 inches from my waistline, right? Now, another thing you need is the full length of your dress. Now the full length of my dress is 35. Instead of marking 35, I'll mark 30 inches. Now after marking that 30 inches, I'll add extra 1 inch to it, making it 31 inches. That 1 inch, I'll use it to like fold out the edge of this lining. So why am I not cutting out the full length of this lining to be the full length of my dress? The pleating or flay on this Ankara will make up for that length, the remaining length of this dress. So you're going to see that when we're actually making the dress. So now I'll go ahead to draw out a straight line and I'll be cutting this out. If you still have any question, kindly go ahead to also ask at the comment section. So now the next step is to cut our layer of Ankara. So now this totally depends on you, right? Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and measure where I want each layer to start or stop. So for my first layer, which will start from here, now the second layer of my Ankara, I'll be starting it, or I'll be joining it about 3 inches after the first layer. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark that line. You're going to also mark it at the back of the other fabric. So from here now, I'll mark at least another 3 inches or 4 inches. Okay, I'm using 4 inches here. So now this is where I'll be attaching the other layer of Ankara. So now, sorry, the last layer will be on this line, the second layer will be on this line, and the last layer is on that ½ inch line, so that I can join it back. Now if you don't know how to get the length of what you want, the layers that you cut out, you can kindly use this as a guide. Place your tape from the starting point for your first layer, and you're going to place it to where you feel you want it to stop on your dress. So I'm using this lining as a guide. So for my first layer, I will use 7 inches. For my second layer, I will use 8 inches. So now, just like we said earlier, the last layer will make up for the Ankara part. That is, it will make up for the Ankara dress, the length of the Ankara dress. And remember, what we minused is 5 inches. So from here, I'll place my tape from that line we are going to attach the last layer, and what I have on the lining is just 5.5 inches. That means I'll add extra 5 inches to this length to make up for the length of the Ankara. So now that means the last layer of my flay, I will be having roughly 10 inches or 10.5. So when I was cutting, I cut out 10.5. So now this is where you have to like pay attention, because you're going to be cutting like layers of fabric and you're going to be joining it together. And another thing is, the more Ankara you use, the fuller your dress. So for the first layer of my Ankara, I'm going to be cutting out 7 inches, but I will add like 1 inch to each extra for folding allowance, or ½ inch for weaving out allowance, right? So this totally depends whether you want to weave or fold. So for the first layer of this ankara, so just like I said, depending on how full you want it to be, you can go ahead to measure the length of ankara, right? Now this is me measuring the ankara. So the first layer I'm cutting about 7.5, and I measured about 60 inches here. So after measuring the 60 inches, I felt like it was a bit small. Then I added additional 30 inches to it, right, to my pattern, and I'll go ahead to mark. So sorry, to cut out with my scissors. So what I did was to go ahead and fold this into two. So I want to cut out two pieces of this, which I'll be joining back together, because I want it to be a bit full, because the first layer should be a bit fuller to make the dress look full. So for the other layers, you can make it slightly scanty if you like. So what I'll do is to go ahead and place my tape, and I'll mark that 7.5 inches I want to cut. I'll be cutting it on fold. So on fold should be like 15.5 inches. So you can go ahead to cut yours on a straight line if you don't want to like join your ankara. So I'm joining up my own ankara because I don't want to like use the whole of my 6 yard. But if you're making it in form of a ready to wear dress, you just want to go ahead and cut it all the way straight so that you don't have any joining. So what I'm cutting now is 7.5 inches by 90 inches. That's 7.5 by 90 inches, and I'm cutting it out on fold. That means I have two pieces of this 7.5 by 90 inches. So just like I said, I am cutting mine on fold, right? I'm going to go ahead to cut this out on fold. After cutting this now, just go ahead to fold it this way, and I'm going to slit it. This is what I meant by I'm cutting the 7.5 inches by 90 on fold. So after cutting it out, what I'll do is just to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to join it up, that is the side up, with ½ inch. That is, after I'm done cutting it open this way, I'll go ahead and join here with ½ inch, then fold the fabric and keep it aside. So this is the first layer, and in total for the first layer I used 7.5 by 180 inches, right? So if you want to make yours fuller, you can go ahead to do so. Now for the second layer, what I did was just to go ahead to make use of the part that I have already cut out. So on this part, I'll be doing a lot of joining. So I measured this part remaining, and what I had was 30 inches. So I'll be doing a lot of joining on this part. So for the second layer of my flay, which we calculated is supposed to be 8 inches. So what I need is like 8 inches by 150. So now since I have like 30 inches here, I'll be cutting this on fold. If I cut 30 inches on fold, it will give me 60 inches, right? I'll cut another 30 inches on fold, it will give me 60 inches. That's 60 plus 60, I have 120. Then I'll cut another 30 inches on fold, which will give me 150 if I add it to the fabric I've already cut out. So all of this, what I'm trying to say is that the first layer of my flay is 7.5 inches by 180. My second layer of flay is 8.5 by 150. Then for my third layer of flay, what I'm using is 10.5 inches by 130. That is, the length is 130 and the width is 10.5. While the second layer, the width is 8.5 and the length, the total length of the fabric I used is 150. While the first layer is 7.5 inches and the total length of fabric I used is 180. So in all of this, you can just go ahead to cut out your fabric and join it. But if you're making this in form of a ready to wear dress, you don't need all this joining. You just have to buy like your 6 yards of fabric and cut it on a straight line. Although I got 6 yards of fabric, but I just wanted to use only the 3 yards of the dress. So that's why I had to like go ahead to join. So this is me cutting the last layer of the flay, which is the third layer. And for this layer, just like I said, what I cut out is 10.5 inches, which the length is 130. So I had to like cut out strips of fabric and join it to make sure that I get up to that 130 inches. So all this measurement I'm using is not like a standard. You just have to like cut out and know what is okay for you, or or how full you want your own dress to be. So if you have any question, please go ahead to. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut out the last layer, and in all of these I'll just go ahead to join all of them, fold up the edge, so that in our next video we'll be doing the sewing of this particular dress. So if you're confused in any way, please go ahead to ask your question, any question at the comment section.